mining led gains on the JSE yesterday as the all share slips from a record high. Investors are still digesting the weak U.S. economic data while focusing on prospects of continued economic recovery and interest rates remaining low. Independent analyst Jimmy Moyaha joins us now for an update on the latest market moves, and he talks to us from Johannesburg. Mr. Moyaha, thanks for your time. The rand, relatively steady yesterday, having breached that 14 rand to the dollar for the first time in 16 months, might I add. It reached an intraday high of 13 rand and 95. Take us through how the currency is performing in early trade.
Good morning. The rand in intraday trade, we've seen it sitting at the moment around the 14 rand 4, 14 rand 5 mark. What we did see it, as you said, breach that 14 rand mark for the first time in a very long time. And like we said, we've been tracking the rand for quite some time, and we've always said that for the next foreseeable future, we anticipate that the range of the rand will be between 14 rand and about 16.50, just because of where the fundamentals are sitting around the rand. At 14 rand, interestingly enough, we feel that at the moment the rand is sort of fairly valued. There was a point where it was quite discounted, but what we saw with that reach down to that 13.95 mark was largely off the back of the weak numbers coming out of the US. As we've said, a lot of the rand strength in the recent times has been centered around US dollar weakness rather than around rand strength. So if we look at where the currency has been sort of performing, we saw that leading up to last week's job numbers in the US, the rand was struggling to break below the 14 rand 20 mark. And because of the huge miss in the US numbers and the huge weakness that resulted in the dollar as of the end of last week, that's when we saw the rand push below the 14 rand mark and push down to where it's sitting at the moment. So at the moment, we still anticipate that the rand is likely to continue trading in this 14 rand to 16 rand range. We might not see it back up at the 18 rand mark in the next 12 to 18 months, but consensus, from where we're sitting at the moment, is that the strength that we're seeing in the rand is rather dollar weakness rather than it is rand strength.
Yeah, let's talk cryptocurrency. The second largest cryptocurrency broke through the $4,000 mark for the first time yesterday. Take us through the significance of this and how cryptocurrency trade has been looking so far this month.
Certainly. So Ethereum broke through some of the previous highs. It broke through the $4,000 mark recently. And again, that's largely off the back of the underpinning blockchain. So where it relates to cryptos, a lot of what we've seen around the crypto space has been less around the actual cryptocurrency, in this case Ether, but more around the Ethereum blockchain. And the Ethereum blockchain has been more widely adopted in recent times. So, things like NFTs, non-fungible tokens, smart contracts. We've got NFTs for virtually everything now. People are creating NFTs to sell memes. People are creating NFTs to sell their artwork, to sell their music. And that whole usage of that NFT system is underpinned by the Ethereum blockchain itself. And that's what's driving the price of the Ethereum coin. It's not necessarily that people are finding value in the coin itself, but rather in the blockchain that underpins it. So the blockchain that relates to Bitcoin and the blockchain that relates to Ripple are different blockchain systems, and they have different uses. So as we've seen the more mainstream adoption of the Ethereum blockchain network, that's what's caused the increase in the Ethereum price. The Bitcoin price has sort of stayed steady. The Ripple price has also seen some early increases as well. If we look back to sometime last year, there was an announcement around the Ripple blockchain network being adopted for payments and for banking infrastructure because of the fact that that's the way the blockchain was built to be catering towards those sorts of things. So the Ethereum network at the moment is catering to a lot more of mainstream adoption, and that's why you're seeing it outperform Bitcoin at the moment and outperform some of the other cryptos.
Stock company news, Pepco releasing a further trading statement for the 6 months ending the 31st of March. Take us through their numbers.
Yeah, so Pepco released some numbers, and the numbers were in anticipation of some finalization around the headline earnings per share and the earnings per share. And the JSE, they've since released a further statement in line with their JSE requirements. As a listed entity, if there is a material difference of at least 20% in anything to be reported from a financial perspective, there has to be a separate statement released around that, or there has to be an announcement made for that. So in their previous statement, they had an indication that this is where they were looking to have their headline earnings sort of sit as a benchmark as a result of the performance of PEP and Ackermans, and as a result of, we know that they sold Bucko to Cashbuild as well. So as a result of their good performance, we had anticipated that they would have good headline earnings and good earnings per share. However, at that time, they were uncertain. There were estimates around the 20% mark, and now they've released a further statement to say that they are looking, they've got more concrete confirmation that we're going to get at least 20% increase in headline earnings per share and earnings per share, which is a very good measure of performance that companies are measured by in South Africa. And that means that, as we spoke about previously when we did review their results, that they did have a good year. They did perform well in the areas that they performed. Pepco, if you remember, had also mentioned that they looked to restructure some of their business. They'd gotten their net debts down. They'd restructured some of their non-profitable businesses and sold off some more non-profitable, and have begun to focus more on the more profitable areas of their business, namely being PEP and Ackermans. Yeah. So the statement is just a reiteration of the headline earnings per share and the earnings per share expected to be higher than that 20% bracket.
Sure. Jimmy, let's end this with a look at the IMF and our neighboring country, Zambia. Despite making significant progress, they've yet to conclude a deal. What's the cause of the delay?
So with the IMF, as we know, where it relates to a bailout, where it relates to financial assistance, more often than not, there are terms and conditions attached to that. And so the conversation has been around identifying the policies that need to be redressed, identifying adjusting the policies that caused the macroeconomic imbalances that we have seen in Zambia, and just preventing Zambia from defaulting like they did. I mean, if we look back to November, they defaulted on coupon payment on one of their dollar bonds, and since then, I mean, we've seen how much their debt has increased. We know that they owe about $3 billion in euro bonds. They owe about another $3 billion to China, and so the IMF, in looking to assist them in extending their credit facility, will look to adjust certain conditions and make sure that certain reforms are taken on board and taken into account. The Zambian finance ministry has expressed that they are very willing to take these reforms and recommendations on board in order to secure the finances and that sort of thing. And the IMF has also come out to say that they are very optimistic about the discussions they're currently having with the Zambian finance ministry around these reforms. So they're just ironing out the structural reforms, the policies, the things that need to change before the finances are sort of approved, or before the credit line is extended to them.
Independent markets analyst Jimmy Moyaha, thank you very much for your insights.